Preface. For most people, listing their house for sale isn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. People often think about selling their house for years before ever actually selling it. Yet given how much time and thought people tend to give it, many people don't do enough to prepare their house for sale or prepare themselves for what's to come. They just get to a point where they decide it's time to sell, and they pop a sign in the yard. This often leads to people not selling their house for as much, as quickly, or as smoothly as it could have, or at all. On the other hand, there are people who do too much and spend way more time and money than they should. They may very well do things that help their house sell as quickly as possible and for as much as possible, but they don't net as much as they could have because they put more money into it than they can recoup from the sale. It's a fine line. You don't want to do too little or too much, which is why I created this booklet, to help you prepare for the sale of your house just the right amount. The more time you have, the more leisurely and thorough you can be. At the same time, don't worry if you're in a rush. Much of what you'll read here can be done in a pinch. Whether you have a few years, a few weeks, or a few days before you put your house on the market, this booklet will help you put your best foot forward. As you read through it and as you prepare your house for sale, feel free to reach out to me if you're ever in doubt about something you're considering doing or not doing. I'll be glad to give you my thoughts on whatever you're considering. 2. Try on some shoes. The first thing you should do doesn't require much work, but that doesn't mean it's an easy thing for everyone to do. Leave your house. Go for a ride, go run some errands, or just go to work. Pretend that you have an appointment later on to see a house you might want to buy, and that house is your house. When you return home, you're going to look at it through the eyes of a buyer. It sounds easy enough, but it's hard to look at your own house objectively. It's easy to get used to things that might turn a buyer off. So your task is to put yourself in the buyer's shoes and try to think and feel how they would about your house when they see it for the first time. As you head back home, pay attention to what you see as you drive up. 1. How does the landscaping look? 2. How about the exterior? Now walk up to the front door, or whatever door a potential buyer will walk through. 1. Was the pathway in good shape? 2. Beyond that, was it actually appealing? 3. Is the front door striking or just blah? 3. Or worse, is it in bad shape? Walk inside. 1. Stop. 1. Look around. 1. Don't just go through the motions of walking where you normally walk when you come home. 1. Buyers won't just rush in, they'll pause for a moment or two. 2. What do they see in those first moments? Walk around the inside. 1. If you didn't know the house, which direction do you think you would walk as the buyer? 1. Go that way. 1. Look through each room with fresh eyes. 1. Make sure you open up closet doors because buyers certainly will. If you have a garage, check that out too. 1. Make sure you take a peek around the garage because most likely that's the way you and a future buyer actually leave and come into the house. Walk around the outside. 1. Buyers won't just see the exterior from the front if they're interested. 1. They'll want to take a walk around the entire house and property. 1. So make sure you head outside. 1. You might want to use a back or side door since that is how many buyers will go outside when they come see your house. Okay, you're done. Are your feet sore? It can be tough walking in someone else's shoes. Now be honest, how'd it look? Would you buy your house? Would you be willing to pay top dollar? Would you be worried that if you don't hurry and make an offer, someone else will come along and scoop up your dream house right out from under you? If you're being honest, there's probably at least a few things you made note of that you should do something about. But before you go knocking things off that list, let's take a look at a few of the most common things sellers overlook. Declutter. The image most people have from watching TV shows is that most people live in pristine houses where everything is orderly and in its proper place. However, if you were to randomly pick 100 houses to go into on a normal day, without warning, you'd find that most people live with a decent amount of clutter in their homes. Not like Martha Stewart or a Pottery Barn catalog. We're not talking hoarder-level clutter, but most people have a certain level of clutter they live with, which is fine. Most people truly live that way. In fact, the buyer and future owner of your house will probably live that way. But before you put your house on the market, it pays to give the clutter you've accumulated some attention. One of the first and most important things you should do is declutter. Go room by room and get rid of anything you don't want, use, or need. This is the best time in life to rid yourself of stuff you never even realized you still owned. Then put away whatever stuff you still want or need, but don't actually use on a daily basis. Yes, that includes the pile of mail bills on the kitchen counter. And I don't mean stuff it all in a closet or the garage. Remember, buyers will look in those places. If you have too much stuff and not enough room to keep it all in a tidy manner while you sell your house, rent a storage unit. You can reunite with all your stuff once your house is sold. This is just temporary. 4. De-smell. Okay, de-smell probably isn't a real word, but just hang with me for a moment. Does your house stink? Whether it does or not, it's unlikely that anyone would actually say yes. We get used to how our house smells, so it's hard for most people to honestly answer that question. The best way to determine if you need to address an odor is to ask someone who doesn't live there. Try not to ask someone who visits your house regularly, though. The best suggestion I could give is to ask a real estate agent to come by and give it the sniff test. We're in houses all the time, so we know when something just doesn't smell right. The most common smells homeowners are often unaware of are 1. Pet odors. 2. Pungent or distinct food odors from cooking. 3. Teenage sons. 4. Cigarette or cigar smoke. Even when people are aware of an odor they should deal with, they often think that masking it with candles, potpourri, or air fresheners is a good solution. It isn't. Even though they smell nice, doing this can trigger curiosity from buyers about the smells you might be trying to hide. The best thing to do is to eliminate the source of the smell, if possible, prior to putting the house on the market. Obviously, this isn't easy to do with pets or teenage sons. But if and when possible, get rid of the source. Like stop cooking tuna fish and onion sandwiches while smoking cigarettes. And maybe convince your stinky son that camping outside in a tent with the dog would be loads of fun for a while. I kid. You should also give your house a thorough cleaning. This is probably a good idea, even if there's no distinct smell. If you're a good cleaner, this involves just a little time and elbow grease. If not, this is a great reason to splurge and hire a cleaning crew to come in and freshen up. If that doesn't work, sometimes people have to replace carpeting or repaint in order to eliminate extremely foul odors. Hopefully you won't have to go to that extreme. But if you do, it's worth the money because a house with a smell will not sell. At least not for as much or as quickly as it might have. Okay, de-smell probably isn't a real word, but just hang with me for a moment. 5. Do not take it personally. Most people have heard that you should depersonalize your house when you're selling it. That term gets thrown around a lot. Most people think it just refers to pictures of themselves or family. But taking down some pictures isn't the whole picture. It also means removing any decor that's more of a personal taste. For instance, you might be super proud of your hunting skills, but displaying your taxidermy trophies on the wall might be off-putting to buyers. Or you may just have some really interesting or artsy furniture. While it may be hip and stylish, it could be distracting to the average buyer. Buyers need to be able to come in and focus on how their own furniture and belongings will look. If they can't overlook your personal flair, they could be less likely to make a strong offer or one at all. As proud as you might be about what makes your house your home, make it as easy as possible for them to feel like it could be their home. 6. The light bulb moment. Here's another bright idea. Make sure all of your light bulbs are working, and make sure they cast an appropriate amount of light upon each room. You wouldn't believe how many houses on the market have lights that are burnt out. Dark rooms simply don't show well. Even worse, non-functioning bulbs can cast a negative light on the owners. Pun intended. In other words, buyers might think, well, if the owners don't take care of the basics like light bulbs, what else are they neglecting? Sometimes it isn't a matter of having bulbs out, it's a matter of having the wrong bulbs. Bulbs are not a one-size-fits-all type of thing. Sometimes people will have bulbs that are way too bright or just cast the wrong feel in a room. Some rooms deserve a crisp, clean, bright light, like in a kitchen. Some are better off with softer, warmer lighting, like in a den. So make sure to give some thought to how the lighting in the room makes you feel. Is it appropriate? If not, try to find the perfect bulbs for the room. Also, make sure that when your house is on the market, the lights are easy to turn on for the agent showing the house. If a light switch that controls certain lighting isn't easy to find, make sure that you leave it on before a showing or leave a note letting people know where the switch is. In fact, if you know there's going to be a showing, it's not a bad idea for you to turn on the lights before the buyer comes. It's simple enough to just ask that the agent turn off the lights once they finish showing the house. That way they can just walk in and get the full effect without having to look for the light switches. 7. Fix it, forget it. It's easy to learn how to live with certain little issues around the house. Many people don't even view certain things as an issue until they're selling their house. Like that gurgling noise that comes from the sink, for example. It might have bothered you at first, but then it just faded into the background once it became familiar. Or the drippy faucet. It's not like it doesn't work, it just likes to not stop working entirely when you turn it off. No big deal. As a homeowner, things like that aren't always bothersome enough to justify hiring someone or fixing it yourself. It doesn't just have to be plumbing, of course. It could be the chipping paint on the ceiling, which happens to be caused by a small leak in the roof when it rains hard, or a loose cabinet door that doesn't close quite right. Whatever it is, there's probably something around your house that could stand to be fixed. But here's the question. Should you fix these little issues before putting your house on the market? The popular and most standard answer in the real estate industry is yes. And let's just say that it can't hurt to fix the little issues around the house. It's like we talked about with the light bulbs that are burnt out. If buyers see smaller issues around the house, they might also wonder about what else you haven't taken care of. But on the other hand, you may be able to ignore the minor fixes and just see if the buyer brings them up during home inspection requests. It may be less costly and easier to negotiate a credit or agree to repair something only when a buyer actually asks for it to be repaired. The same goes for more serious issues like an HVAC system that's not working properly. You should probably fix that sort of thing prior to putting your house on the market, but it could make sense to just wait and see how buyers react. There's no absolute answer to this. So the best thing to do is make a list of all of the issues around your house and ask your agent for their advice. You may even want to hire a home inspector to perform a pre-listing home inspection, so you won't get caught off guard by what your buyer's inspector will likely find. Doing this is never a bad idea. 8. Reservations about major renovations. As an agent, I get asked a lot about renovations and more specifically whether they'll increase a home's value, or if they're even necessary to do before selling. It's a good thing to ask about because many people don't ask and then end up regretting the work they did. Quite often, a renovation project ends up costing the homeowner more than it actually increases the value of the house. Sure, it might increase the value, but there's a good chance it won't increase it enough to justify the time and cost of having done it. That's not to say that it never makes sense to do a renovation project before selling. Some certainly do improve the value beyond the cost of doing it. And sometimes doing a renovation can make the difference between getting a house sold more quickly versus sitting on the market forever or simply not selling. Renovations like a new kitchen or bathroom are often cited as being a great return on investment. They can be, but they might not be for you and your particular house and situation. So make sure to think twice before doing any major renovation to your house prior to putting it on the market. Make sure to run any project you are considering by your real estate agent.